is going on, you guys? And today I have the mighty Choctaw, Jay Bravewolf, here on the Beyond the Wrestling Gear podcast. Welcome, Jay.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm excited to have you, man. I've been following you for quite a bit, and what really intrigued me is a lot about you is your gimmick. Like the Choctaw gimmick. So, how did you come about that, and what kind of inspired you to kind of really go into it?
Well, it's just in the area of Tennessee where I'm at, the Choctaw Nation has a lot of very deep roots, including a reservation not far from where I perform in Ripley. And what it is I've kind of taken up that mantle as a way to have that pride in the Choctaw people and bring that to the forefront of wrestling and say, hey, we have something to bring to this table as well, not just not just culturally, but also too, we've got some great athletes in our people. We want to bring them out and show the world just what we can do.
I mean, what your gimmick reminds me of a little bit is I don't know if you've heard of Tatanka, from back in the '90s.
Mm-hmm.
He's I think he's actually part of a nation himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Tatanka is a very big influence, but also to Daniel Wahoo, also from in the '70s and '80s, and Jay Youngblood, who used to tag team with Ricky Steamboat back in the day. Those three are probably my hugest influences in what I bring to the ring.
What actually motivate you to get into professional wrestling?
Oh, well, like most people who grew up in the late '80s and early '90s, I was aware of pro wrestling. As a small child, I knew who like Hulk Hogan was and the Ultimate Warrior and Macho Man Randy Savage. But it wasn't until about the mid '90s when the big boom period happened that I really got into it. And I actually got to watch the big leg drop from Hulk Hogan when the NWO formed. I watched that as it happened on pay-per-view, and it just became the coolest thing, and it just stuck with me my whole life. And a couple years ago, I kind of came to a conclusion. I said, I'm not getting any younger. This has always been a bucket list thing. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try it. With thankfully the love and support of my family, I began training about 2 years ago. I first started training up in Indiana under Kid Owen with WCWO, a great place out in Indianapolis, and then relocated down here to Western Tennessee and got in touch with the Golden Greg Anthony. He's the current AWIF heavyweight champion, and I said, hey, I've got a little bit of experience under my belt. Would you take me on as a student? And he completely opened my eyes to a new way to train. He's taught me so much, just in terms of just the technicality of performing in the ring and how to think and how to move. But yeah, it always been a dream of mine to do it. I used to always say back when I was a kid, someday that's going to be me in that ring. Someday I'm going to be standing in there. And I just said to heck with it. We're doing it.
I feel like there's not much as far as like representation of tribes and things like that in professional wrestling. Do you feel like there's not much representation, and do you feel like there should be a way to kind of bring more awareness to it, like? Because there's not, like you said, there's not very many. There's Tatanka and there's a few others, but I don't think I've heard of like a world champion, that
Well,
has come out of the nation.
could there be? Yes. I mean, there can always be more representation for any group. I think though, for a lot of people who come from that background, the identity takes a backseat. They want to be known as a wrestler first, and as as a member of a nation second. I always tell people, it's like I'm a wrestler, I just happen to be this as well. It's a simple matter of, I think, maybe just younger generations needing to get more in touch with that root. I know myself, like, I didn't really begin to discover my own cultural heritage until much later on in life. Beforehand, it was never something that was very at the forefront of my mind. But as I got older and I had kids, I was like, I want them to know where they come from, and I want to discover that myself. And once I did, I was like, this is something to be proud of.
What's been the most difficult part for you when it comes to your journey through professional wrestling?
The heights. No, jumping off turnbuckles because I'm terrified of heights. No, the hardest thing is just like with anything else, you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. There are days I will get up and I don't want to train. I go to the gym 5 days of the week. I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to keep my grappling skills at the top of their game. I train in the ring at least one time a week. And this is even after having debuted. I mean, as somebody who is out there wrestling shows in front of people, I still train as if I was a brand new student. But some days it's just that I don't want to get up, I don't want to do it. I'm tired, I'm sore, I'm achy. But I always tell everybody that dedication will always trump motivation. The days that I don't want to train, that's when I need to train my hardest. That's when I need to hit it as hard as I can, leave nothing in the tank, leave it all out on the floor. And those are usually the days I end up having my best training. Every lift I do is a new PR. Every move I perform in the ring, I do it perfectly and as if I'm just taking a breath that easily. And those are the days when I look back and I think to myself, man, I'm very, very glad that I decided to train, even though I didn't feel like it. That's the hardest thing.
What's been the highlight of your journey so far?
There is, so where I perform at in Ripley, Tennessee, there is this family that has been there every week, and they have a little 4-year-old who just thinks I'm the coolest thing ever. Like, as soon as he sees me, he does the chop. He sees me in the parking lot after the show, he does the chop, and it's getting to look at that little guy and remembering myself as a young kid, looking up to the people who I looked up to and who I loved seeing in the ring, and getting to say, the process now gets the cycle starts all over again. Like, this is a kid who may someday find himself headlining WrestleMania, thinking back to that guy he saw in some little town in the South, thinking he's the greatest thing ever, and that's what got him started on his journey. That's been the highlight, is seeing the young fans. Hokahei is a Lakotan term. I can't find a direct translation into English, but it basically is a term used to mean like, let's go, let's do this. It's meant to, like, as a battle cry of and that's one of those things that I say it because it's like I need to give that move, that little extra effort, that little I need to put my heart and soul into what I'm about to do. It gives me that sense of power, that sense of purpose of, okay, I'm gonna finish this. I say it, I feel it, and then we go, and then that's it.
Like a hype up, when the heels, attacking you and you're going down and you start hyping up and then you say a certain chant or you do a certain movement and it just
Mm-hmm.
brings and you hype up the crowd and it helps you get back up and running. That's
Yep.
your thing.
Yep, it helps me dig down deep, and when I hear that, crowd firing up, and I feel it, it's one of those things. As cliche as it's going to sound, every single one of them, they're in the ring with me. I feel their energy, I feel their spirit. It fills me up, and that's when I'm like, okay, I let out the war cry, and then we take it home.
Yeah, you gotta do your thing and really just push yourself to do your best.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's there's no point in doing anything if you're not going to put your heart and soul into it. You know, I don't do this for money. I don't do it for fame. I don't do it for glory. I do it because I have a gift and I have a talent, and it is an insult to everybody who's ever believed in me if I don't live up to that. If I don't take what I can do and put it out into the world and try to do something good with it. So it's one of those things, I if I win, great. If I lose, oh well, because I put everything inside me into that ring, and I make sure that when I go back through that curtain, I know that I left it all out there on the mat.
You mentioned a lot of it. A lot of the traveling and really inspiring the crowd and being yourself and all these things. One of the things I'm noticing too on the wrestling business, it's becoming more empathetic towards wrestlers. Like now, it's
Mm-hmm.
not so much the traveling, but they're actually thinking about wrestlers. Like whenever there's a holiday, you could take off because I mean, this, but a lot of the professional wrestlers are independent contractors,
Hmm.
and when you're binded to a certain contract like WWE, you're traveling basically 2/3 out of the year. I mean, that's was before Vince, left Power, but when he was in Power, it was most of the time traveling, so you didn't really have time to really unwind and recharge and spend time with family. Triple H is in that home. Do you feel like a lot of wrestling organizations might follow suit and be like, let's give these families time to spend, wrestlers time to spend time with their families and enjoy time for themselves, you know?
I definitely think that there will be a shift culturally in the wrestling world to have more of that, um, to have more of that empathy towards them and their needs. So you see it right now with like Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss. They left to start families, and the door has always felt open for them to come back when they are ready to. And giving them that time off and giving them that option of saying, okay, go start your family, do what you need to do outside of here. When you come back, we'll be waiting for you. That's always a great attitude to have. Being able to say to wrestlers, yeah, we're gonna stop operations from, the 24th to the 26th of December. Yeah, it's only a couple days, but still, like, hey, go home, be with your family, come on back. We'll come back fresh in a couple days and get back to work. I think that the more you take care of your athletes, the more they'll take care of you. I have a very good relationship with Greg at Pro Wrestling Mid South. Like if I can't work a show coming up a week, he's like, "Hey, no problem." If I've got to recover from a small injury, he's like, "Hey, no worries. We'll see it. We'll see you next week." He's a family man too, so he understands that, yeah, the business is important and that always needs to be understood. But at the same time, it's like, hey, if you've got to do this, or if you've got to do this, or you need to take care of this, go take care of that. Because when you're in a ring and you've got, somebody on your shoulder and you need to like put them down in a way that doesn't injure them, you need your mind 100% focused on what you're doing. You can't be worried about this, that, or the others. He's very good at saying, if I'm saying, hey, I gotta go up to see some family for a thing next weekend, I'm not going to be available for a show. I never feel like I'm being disloyal to him. I never feel like I'm letting him down. I never feel like, he's disappointed in me. He's always just like, hey, take care of what you got to take care of. Call me when you get back. Let me know you got home safe. And we'll see you next week. That's it.
I mean, it's like you said it right then and there. Time for yourself and time for your family is always important, no matter what you're doing. And speaking about that, this is something that I always thought about, but I feel like it's a really there's a thin line. Like I don't feel like it's ever gonna happen. But do you feel like there will be a chance where wrestling companies will pursue like find a certain kind of insurance for wrestlers, so that they can be insured when they're hurt, like some kind of insurance for them?
Yes and no, because a lot of times when it comes to being an independent contractor, having private insurance means that the performer can get insurance tailored to their specific needs. It's one of the reasons why like Lloyd's of London is very, very big, not just in professional wrestling, but music, like conventional like sports like football and baseball, because they can insure specific things. Like for instance, like a pitcher can insure their arm, so if they ever blow out their arm permanently, they can get a payout for what would have been however much money they would have made a year for however long they could have feasibly been employed for. If you wanted to say, hey, this company is going to offer health insurance for its roster, you run into two problems. One is because since health insurance for a company is based on like the price and the premiums that you pay are based on how many people you have, a lot of smaller companies just do not have the roster large enough to facilitate that. And then two, again, since it's kind of like a one size fits all, I may look at the policy and say, this is a great policy, but I would only use half of it. Therefore, the cost of it isn't justified in it. When I could go to a private insurance company and say, hey, I want to insure, my knees in case they give out as I get older. I want to go ahead and get like insurance for in case I suffer a concussion like Bret Hart did. I can do that. But would I like to see it? Would I like to see that happen in terms of like professional wrestling? Absolutely. Because if nothing else, it's one thing the wrestlers don't have to worry about. It's a safety net for the company in case somebody is hurt. Then they can say, okay, cool. Well, you're hurt. Let's go ahead and file the claim. You have your payout. You can recover. You can rest and recuperate. And then once you're back to 100% because you don't have to worry about anything else, then you can come back when you're ready. Or if it's, a career-ending injury or a career-ending incident, they can go ahead and say, okay, well, we've cashed you out. You're good to go. We're still in your corner if you need us, but this is where we part ways as this goes. But it's because insurance is it's a very what's the word I'm looking for, like it's almost like a minefield. Like, you gotta really know how to step, where to step, when to step, and if you step wrong, everything goes kablooey. I don't know, just hopefully still doing it. This is, because again, this is, for me, it's a labor of love. I'm not looking to get rich, I'm not looking to get famous. I mean, at my age, would I love to say, get discovered with the new WWE ID program and get a developmental deal and do all that? Yeah, but realistically, at my age, it's not very feasible. I'm creeping up on, I'll be turning 40 this year, so I got kind of late start. I know guys like, Diamond Dallas Page, he got started in his late 30s.
Don't discredit yourself. Diamond Dallas Page started late, and look at him.
But here's the thing, Diamond Dallas Page is Diamond Dallas Page. He is, the man was and is still just, they broke the mold with him. I wish I could do what he was able to do at the same age, but he was just, he was one of a kind. But again, for me, it's since it's a labor of love, the only place I ever want myself to be in this business is in the ring, helping out the new guys coming in, helping, push the guys who came before me. And at the end of the day, if when I walk through that curtain, I'm getting a cheer and I'm getting, claps and applause. If I'm getting that, then I'm doing great. It doesn't matter if there's a belt around my waist or not. It's just, so long as I walk through and the crowd is still there chanting and cheering for me, then everything is great. Everything is fine at that point. I mean, I couldn't train anybody any better than Greg could. It would be very presumptuous of me to say that I could ever train somebody, with any kind of proficiency. I look at it more as looking at the younger guys coming in and giving the benefits of my experience, being able to sit there and say, because I've been fortunate too with some of the folks that I've worked with and, have shared a locker room with who, have been very generous with not just their time, but also their expertise. I don't mean to I don't want to sound like I'm, name dropping here, but, when Downtown Bruno has worked a few of our shows, and he's a very good friend of Pro Wrestling Mid-South. He's given me a lot of great feedback, having watched some of my matches. So again, I've been very fortunate to have that, and I look at it as I need to do that for those coming in. So when we get younger guys who are, in the next few years who come in, who are like, trying to figure out their way, I look at it as it's my job to say, okay, well, here, let me give you some advice. Let me help point you in the right direction. Let me help steer you where you need to go, or help you find what it is that you're looking for. So that way you can be successful. You can, become the next great thing. And then so you can also help the next guy that comes after you. I don't think I could train anybody, but I could definitely impart that knowledge and wisdom and experience, and then hope that they do something with that. I have 3. In the current promotion where I'm at, Jason Perez, our current Southern Junior Heavyweight Champion, he's a great guy, wonderful, amazing athlete, great wrestler. I would love to test my mettle against him and just see how well I would stack up, because He's just been so awesome ever since he first saw him at Pro Wrestling Mid South. I would love to just once, just one match, just to see, you know, how I measure up. There's one guy back in Indiana who I would love to have a match with, Cameron Cross, the Water Boy up there at WCWO. Me and him go back a long ways. He's basically the polar opposite of me in terms of his wrestling style. He's very athletic, he's very agile, he's very fast, he can take to the skies very well. He's another one who I want to kind of test my mettle against. He could very well hang with some of the more high flying cruiserweights that we've seen in the past. And it's like, you know, I'm very much like a boulder where I get in one place, I stay there, and I try to fight from there. I want to see how well I would do against him. And then the big one, I would love nothing more than to wrestle former WCW World Heavyweight Champion David Arquette, because I know he caught a lot of flack back. I know he caught a lot of flack back in the day for what happened when they put the belt on him. But the man he's a fan. He loves the business, and he took it upon himself to go out, get trained, and then start working. And that to me is one of the biggest signs of respect for the business. And I would love to just wrestle him just because I think it would be fun. If I win, I get to say, hey, I took down a former heavyweight champion. If I lose, I get to say, hey, I got in the ring with a former world heavyweight champion. But that would be my ultimate, like, if I got to do that, I could retire right then and there and be happy. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's why, again, he went out and oh yeah, I mean, because I'll tell you right now, you cannot pay me enough to do a death match. I like my face how it is. So the fact that he went out there and did that, I'm like, wow, dude, it's like if I ever got a chance to, I would take it in a heartbeat, just because, I mean, the man is, like I said, I know he caught a lot of flack for it, and, you know, a lot of people, you know, when they hear David Arquette in terms of pro wrestling, they just kind of groan. But let's be honest, if you're okay with the Costco guys in AEW, but not okay with David Arquette in WCW, we got to reevaluate some things. Oh my goodness. Andy Kaufman. You know what, though? I think it was all a work, and because Andy Kaufman is such, he was such a brilliant method comedian and actor, that it was a work that was so good, he convinced the whole world that it really that all that really happened. Like, it was, the man was either an authentic genius or a certified wacko. But, you know, it was awesome. And, of course, you know, Lawler being able to keep up with him, you know, just the whole time. It's one of those things, you know, I always tell people, it's one of those feuds. If you haven't seen it, you go back and see it. And, of course, Jim Carrey's portrayal of Andy Kaufman in the biopic that he did was perfect in every, like, I could actually close my eyes and be like, okay, yep, this is the Lawler match, okay.
The fact that he took a power driver from Jerry says a lot, that he was willing to step in the ring even though he had no experience to actually do that and entertain a crowd.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's why, like, no matter, like, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you have the gumption to go train and then step into the ring, you'll always have my respect. There are wrestlers who I do not like as controversial as a person as he is, Logan Paul. I'm not a fan of his in any way, shape, or form. I just can't. I don't get it. But then again, I'm not his target demographic. But the fact that he went, got trained, stepped in the ring, and had some of the matches that he had, and not only that he had the matches that he had, but also took care of his opponent the way he did, like when he caught Rey Mysterio, when he did that salt. I respect him. Like, I would shake his hand, and I would feel safe putting my body in his hands, stepping into the ring. Still don't like him, but I respect him and would defend his work to anyone any day of the week, because the man took the time, dedicated himself, went out there, got in the ring, and put himself out there. Well, yeah, cause no, I've been there. It's one of those things you never forget a concussion in the ring. But I think what that speaks to, and here's the thing, CM Punk, I'm kind of a casual fan with him. Like, I'm not like, but the one thing that he exemplified in that moment is that him and Seth Rollins, they're adversaries, they're not enemies. In that sense of, yeah, we're going at it, we're coming at each other with everything we got, but at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want something bad to happen to this person. It's, I view, whenever I step in the ring with somebody, it's like, this is my opponent, this isn't my enemy, it's my opponent. Do I want to beat him? Yes. Do I want to hurt him? No. Do I want to see them hurt? No. I want them to get up and be able to walk out of the ring, same as I am, head held high. And it speaks to class with CM Punk. Like I said, I'm a casual fan, but, he has my respect for that. Yeah. The funny thing about them is they are similar in the sense that they both, are almost like once in generation talents. Like they are, they are definitely cornerstones of that company in its current and modern incarnation. And you tend to find that when you have two people who are that much alike, they will butt heads. Would I love to see them on the same page? Yeah, but that's gonna take something like huge, because that old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It would take something massive to be able to get them on the same page and then working on the same page to take down whatever that would be. But I think once they do, I mean, it will be incredible. Like, it will be incredible. At the risk of kind of like geeking out here, it almost would be like, growing up as a kid, you get Goku and Vegeta, they're, it's on site with them all the time. They want to beat each other up senselessly. But once it's like, oh, there's something over here that is really bad, and they get on the same page, they become unstoppable. And I think were that to happen, those two would be incredible. Like, I don't want to compare it to like the Mega Powers, but it'd be kind of like the Mega Powers, except with way more flamboyant clothing, because oh my god, Seth Rollins, the outfits he wears, I think back to like,
very out there. Yeah, very out there. But it's good though, because it shows his personality. I actually like that. The
I
fact that
love
he's
it.
willing to go.
He reminds me of how Ric Flair was back in the 80s. Styling, profiling, alligator shoes, Rolex watch. And it's one of those things, you look at Seth Rollins, you'll never confuse him for anyone else. Like, you could look at some wrestlers and get them confused for somebody else. With him, there's only one. Like with Diamond Dallas Page, they broke the mold with that one. They broke that mold.
One of the very shocking things that happened this week too was I am just like, I was dumbfounded when Hogan came out to the arena for the crowd, and everybody's like booing him, and I'm sitting here like, why are they
Mm.
booing him? And my first thought was, is it political? Is it the fact that he, in the past, of course, he's been in controversy with how he feels about a certain demographic, but I mean, I couldn't really tell what it was. Why were they booing him?
The thing about Hulk Hogan is you need to be able to separate the art from the artist in order to really appreciate him. Now, Terry Bollea has done a lot of very questionable things, a lot of very shady things. He has, from the ratting out Jesse Ventura about trying to unionize the wrestlers in the back, to his exercising creative control in WCW to keep newer talent down but push him and his friends up, to changing TNA wrestling, getting rid of the six-sided ring, and then bringing in Eric Bischoff, and then trying to like push his daughter's music career. He has stepped on a lot of toes in the world of wrestling. Do I think there could be like political reasonings why he was booed? There could be, but keep in mind, Undertaker also has the same political leanings, but he got a pop. The big difference between the two is Undertaker has always been for the boys. Hulk Hogan's always been for Hulk Hogan. And it's one of those things where the character of Hulk Hogan, the say your prayers, eat your vitamins, train, Hulkamania, if you can take away Terry Bollea from that and just look at Hulk Hogan, yeah, it's very disheartening to hear that he was booed. But if you're not able to separate those two things, it makes perfect sense as to why he was booed, because he has done a lot of dirty things to a lot of people in the business for 40 years. And it could just be that the crowd is just tired of it. It could just be that they're saying, okay, Hulk Hogan's had his day, he's done his thing, now we want to move on. Do I think, because I know that there was Stone Cold was supposed to do it, but he backed out last minute. Do I think Stone Cold would have gotten that reception? No. The roof would have been blown off as soon as that glass broke. Oh, as soon as that glass broke and he walked out, the place would have erupted. But but also too, you got to think the demographic of the WWE now is, it's younger. It's younger. There are some people who are out there and who are fans who they've only ever heard the negative things about Hulk Hogan. They didn't get to see Hulkamania in its prime and then see that kind of downfall and then kind of see him kind of try to bring himself back. They've just seen the downfall. That's why, guys like The Rock, are still getting pops the way they are. That's why Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he did that match with Kevin Owens, it was like, my God, like everybody was like, where's this? Where's this been? Why aren't we having more of this? It's because that generation that grew up with those guys, those are the ones now that are, older, who have the kids that they're taking to the wrestling shows to say, look, these are the guys who I saw as a kid. It's kind of like how, growing up, you didn't really, like you thought your dad's music was kind of lame. It's like, oh, Dad, that's, I don't want to listen to that. I want to listen to my stuff. And then when you get older and have kids, you try to say, hey, listen to, why don't you listen to my music from when I was a kid? It's just that. I do feel bad for Jimmy Hart, though. He was out there catching strays. Poor guy was waving that flag like his life depended on it.
He's going through it. I can tell.
Yeah.
He is like, what's going on here? I'm not the center of this, but I just got caught up in it.
I'll say this much, and because I believe this about anybody. Huh? Oh yeah. The Ultimate Warrior. That guy who is somebody who, yeah, he had his fair share of, negative, negativity in the world of wrestling, and I think that had he not passed in the manner that he did, he would have gone on to kind of redeem himself in the eyes of the WWE Universe for the things that he'd done in the past. And that's something that I would actually like to see happen for Hogan, because I don't wish anybody ill. I feel that if everybody, can redeem themselves. There's an old saying, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. I would love to see Terry Bollea, the man, come to grips with the things that he has done, make amends for the people that he had hurt, and take responsibility for those things, and make a genuine change in his life to repair those relationships that he himself damaged. Like, for instance, invoking the name of Macho Man Randy Savage, everybody knew where Savage stood on Hogan. That was out of pocket for him. I would love to see him, though, going forward, repair those relationships, fix those friendships, come to, really close the book on all of that, and become again the hero that we all grew up thinking he was. Like, I don't want to have to separate the man from the art. I want to be able to look at both and say I'm a fan with pride. I really hope that for him.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I would definitely want to see that, and see a better future for the business. And speaking about that, like, how do you feel about a lot of these major companies? Now we have WB on Netflix, we have AEW on Max. Do you feel like a lot more companies will follow suit?
Yes, I think it will, because it gives access to a much wider audience that way. But pro wrestling will always have one foot in broadcast television, whether it be like regular broadcast or cable, because they're gonna need to keep that one foot in there, because if the streaming bubble pops, they need somewhere to go back to. But if it's also one of those things where not everybody wants streaming. Like a lot of the older audience, My father-in-law, bless his heart, he is 70 years old, wants nothing to do with streaming. But will he watch Memphis wrestling on the local TV station? Absolutely. Absolutely. Every week, like clockwork. You try to tell him, hey, we can watch, Raw on Netflix. He's like, no, don't. Mm-mm. And I think that's great because it gives that wider reach, but also to make sure it doesn't alienate the already established fan base.
I mean, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan, and you see a lot of these fans like putting down WWE, putting down AEW. I mean, just last night, like I don't know if you know, but this last year, I had the opportunity to interview Matt Riddle on my
Wow.
podcast, and I got to meet him. We got to talk about his time in WWE, his friendship with Randy Orton, his time in Japan, and also his road to the MLW World Championship. And
Mm-hmm.
watching Kings of Colosseum last night, he actually won the title after 7 years
Nice.
of trying to win it, and he finally won the big one. And I'm happy for him, considering that he's gone through, trials and tribulations in his life. A lot of controversy, um, things like that. And it shows that even if you go through some tough times,
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. It's just about whether or not you're going to work for it. I love hearing that for him because I know he kind of had a rough go there for a while. I'm glad that he's landing on his feet and he's doing well. I mean, because ultimately enough, I want that for everybody. I mean, here's the beauty part about me. You can sum me up in this one thing. Anybody and everybody in the world can look at you and hate you for no reason. By that logic, I should be able to look at anybody and everybody and love them for no reason. And be able to say, I love you, I want what's best for you, I want you to be happy. For no other reason other than just because it takes the same amount of energy to wish both. One, just, I sleep better at night having in my heart. And I'm glad he's done that. But yeah, there's a lot of tribalism in pro wrestling, especially like WWE versus AEW, in terms of, who's better or who's ratings and this, that, and the other. And my thought process is this, is unless I am a stockholder in a company, I don't care what the ratings are. I could care less because as a fan, if I have time to think about the ratings or, the stock prices while I'm watching a match, then the match is trash and that's what we need to fix. A guy I follow, Suplex Media, great guy, wonderful guy. He wants to reshape the wrestling conversation to get it away from things like, ratings or just because you like one promotion, you have to hate another. I view it from this perspective of all wrestling promotions, big and small, all have something unique to offer. And all you have to do is find the promotion that speaks to you. Like, I'm more WWE than AEW only because it's a more akin to what I grew up with and what I'm familiar with and what I like and what I enjoy. But I can still look at AEW and say, man, they got some good stuff going on there. Like, I love the renaissance that Jeff Jarrett is having right now. Like, he's somebody who as a kid I didn't really get and wasn't really a fan of, but as an adult now and looking back, I'm like, man, he was great. I love that they have like that really fast-paced, high-action spot, very reminiscent of the WCW Cruiserweight division, which is why I think Ricochet, once he gets his footing there, is going to do really well there because he can do that style with the best of them. So I think he's going to do great there because they have that. Ring of Honor, that's like the pinnacle of the indie scene. It's like that Bryan Danielson, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, early Sami Zayn, El Generico style, I think, yeah. So it's like, I think that people need to stop saying, oh, well, I like this, if you don't like this, you're wrong, and start thinking, well, I like this because of this. Why don't you tell me why you like this? And let me see if I can find something in that I like. And let's see if you can find something in what I like that you like, and have that common ground, because at the end of the day, it's all pro wrestling. It's just, why are you going to hate somebody for liking something different than what you like when at the end of the day, the people that make the millions of dollars could care less? It's like, we have more in common than we do differences as pro wrestling fans, except when it comes to like, midget wrestling. Everybody universally loves that because it's just funny as all hell.
It's funny. I've never been to a show, but I've always wanted to go to one.
Here in Tennessee, micro wrestling is based. I think they're based out of like Eastern Tennessee. They're one of the biggest in the nation. It is on my bucket list to go and see them. They have some of the greatest performers I've ever seen. Like they perform every bit as well as any other promotion, hands down. Their characters are fun. They have a guy who's he's basically like Ozzy Osbourne. Gets me cracking up every time I see it. Psycho, he's just this bonkers crazy guy. And it's one of those things where it's just good fun, and it's one of those things where if you were to go and see it, you could kind of turn your brain off and just lose yourself in the fun and just watch it all happen and enjoy every moment of it and leave thinking to yourself, wow, that was just fun.
Yeah, it's like Hornswoggle. I was just watching the Chris Van Fleet his podcast Insight, and he was on it, and he mentioned that he suffers from hearing loss. He has a hearing aid,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason he had it was because as a kid he had a tumor,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to operate that tumor. And he said when he was a kid, he had this. After the surgery, I guess he had his head wrapped in like the gauze, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody was like looking at him. And I think he mentioned at the time he could barely hear. Like he had a difficult time hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and then no people would stare at him because he's got this massive head, which he mentioned, but his body's smaller than his head, so people would like stare at him. But it's really amazing how someone like him, knowing that he faced that early in life.
Yeah. Well, we the only thing that limits us is ourselves and how we approach the challenges in life. I've been very blessed and very fortunate to know a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. And I will say this, the toughest, strongest and most compassionate people are the ones who would most people would say have the most challenges, whether it's missing limbs or whether it's different congenital diseases, because they could be bitter and say hey, I hate life, but they choose to sit there, look at it, and it's like, you know what, no big deal. I'm gonna still tackle life, because
I can
if this isn't gonna get me down, what
I
can
can
me?
still do it. I can still hang in there, and as long as you believe in yourself, first and foremost, that's what matters. Sorry, guys, we're having a bit of a technical difficulty here. We're waiting until Jay gets back on. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. It's been awesome so far. Let's take a look and see if we can get him back on here. But yeah, it's been really really cool, and we've learned a lot about him, and of course journey to the wrestling business. If you guys liked about the show so far, let me know. Tell me what's been a good part about it, what we can improve on, and I've really enjoyed having Jay on so far. Let's see if we can get him back on here. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen the podcast yet, I just recently launched on Spotify, so you guys can definitely check it out. But yeah, once he gets back on, oh, there he is.
Hey, sorry about that. Internet kind of took a little bit of a dive there.
Trust me, I dealt with that recently until I switched up internet providers, and I was like, it would always like either A, it would freeze up, or B, it would be really choppy, and I was sick of it because every time I try to record, it would always fall apart, and so I was like, I need to start changing it up because if I'm gonna start recording these podcasts, it's gonna be I have to have something more stable, more reliable. So
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. We're actually in the process of switching internet providers for that same reason, because it's like we it works. We I live out in the sticks. Like I live out on a farm, 20 minutes out of town. I get no signal whatsoever, and we use satellite internet because it was just all that was available out here. But now we're like, oh well, they laid fiber optic, in our area, so it's like, oh, we can get that now. So it's like, that's next on our to get list.
you were I was on DSL myself until just like a month ago, so I
Oh,
don't know how
DSL.
my internet.
I still remember the 30-day trial discs of AOL. I still remember those.
Yeah, it was so slow. To download my podcast, it would take forever. It would take hours and hours because And our podcast will take me at least a day or two to get it downloaded, and then to work on it would even be longer. But now that I switched platforms too, because I used to be on StreamYard, but StreamYard's
Mm-hmm.
not as friendly for editing and for making reels and things like that. Riverside, I'm able to do that. Like as soon as I get done recording with you, I'm able to clean up the episode within minutes, and then you make reels for the episode too, so I can do a ton of content and post it out there and gain a lot of traction for not just myself but for the guests too. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping this episode will help you too. More so you than me. You know.
Well, no, no, more so you because here's the thing. I am unbelievably like humbled and honored that you even asked because with all the great talent out there, you were like, "Hey, I want to have you on here," and I can't tell you like how touched I was and how like just how humbling and honored I felt just because I was like, man, there's plenty of better ones out there. Why me? And then it's like, it's a blast, and it's one of those things, seeing what you do, and the positivity that you yourself bring to the wrestling space is just, you don't know how just honored I am to just be here.
Who's in the wrestling business? He has cerebral palsy like myself, and he
Mm-hmm.
told me something one day when we met up in person in River City for the first time ever last year because I had recorded with him twice, did two episodes, and
Mm-hmm.
he said something to me that has always stuck to me. And he said, "When you're doing wrestling podcast, I know it's easy for someone to really get caught up in it and try to ask the big names, and I noticed I was really having a tough time because I would talk to some of the big names, of course, Teddy Long, Ron Simmons, and I wanted to ask just simple friendly questions." And then, of course, they mentioned, I don't do podcasts. And of course, they mentioned that a lot of these podcasters tend to misconstrue or twist words, what they say. And it got me thinking, you know what? They're right. Because when you're someone that doesn't respect what they say, that just ruins it for everybody. But
Yeah.
my buddy said, you know what? Start small and work your way up. And the funny thing is with Teddy was at the end of the event. Of course, we took a picture and everything. I have a picture with him. He came up to me and said, I can't do a podcast, but I can definitely do a promo and a shout out." So he did the whole 9 yards. As far as the promo, he did he did, "What's the name of your podcast?" And I said the name of the podcast. He's like, "Well, if you don't listen to the podcast, you're gonna go one on one with the Undertaker." And he literally did the whole spiel, and I'm like, my gosh, this is awesome, and I was so grateful for it, and I thanked him for it. And then this is where Matt Riddle came along towards the very end of the event. My buddy, who I've interviewed twice, he goes up to Matt Riddle and he says, "This is David here. He's got an amazing podcast, a great podcast. He's a wonderful human being." And Matt goes and says, "You know what? I'll go ahead and do the interview. What do you want to do? It? You want to do it here, like right now?" And mind you, I had no gear, I had no audio, no nothing, and I'm like, and no questions. I just went ahead and just improved it, did the best I could, and we did a 6-7 minute interview there, and it was surreal because he just got fresh out of WWE. And I was
Mm-hmm.
expecting him to say no, and I could have respected that, but he said yes, we'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, what's that old saying? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. The one thing I've learned in talking with like big names is they're just regular guys. They're just regular people. I was very fortunate. Right after I started training with Greg, Buff Bagwell came to Pro Wrestling Mid South, and couldn't have been nicer. He. Oh yeah, he is like he was so generous with his time and his energy. He took the time to, answer questions, take pictures, with not just the fans but like us, like as a trainee. I'm like, I mean, I mean, I remember watching, Buff Bagwell, like, the his mom on the forklift match and all those, and I'm just like, he's like, well, what kind of questions do you guys have? And I blank. I just go, like, I'm thinking to myself, okay, here's somebody with all the experience and all the knowledge in the world, and I can't think of a thing to ask him. And I'm just like, I'll get back to you. Like next time you come through town, I'll think of something because I wasn't expecting it. And I think the people who have the most longevity in terms of like the fans are always the ones that are the most generous with their time. I've met at conventions. I met Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and it's so funny. Yeah, he's an absolute sweetheart. But like I said, most of the guys that you meet in this industry who've been around for a while, like Downtown Bruno, he's such a wonderful guy. He's very funny. He's absolutely hilarious. He refereed my last match. We did a benefit show for United Way last Sunday, and he refed my match, which I was like, I get to have my match refereed by Downtown Bruno himself. I was like, oh my god, like you could have knocked me over with a feather just because. But he's so funny and he's so giving with his time, because he knows like I just started working for Mid South, and he always, anytime he has seen me work, he's always had like, hey man, you're doing really good with this, work on this a little bit and you're doing great. Work on this a little bit, but this is going great and you're really killing it with this. And just a super sweet guy, and again, just generous with his energy and his time and his insight. We also during that match, it was funny. He has a little bit of a rivalry going on with my opponent for that match, Uber Destroyer. They have a little bit of a rivalry going. So after I got the pin, Bruno went down for a cover, and I got to count a 3 count for Downtown Bruno, which I was like, I thought was so cool. And he's been with WWE since 1979, I believe. I think now that Vince is out, he's the most like tenured person in the company. Yeah, and he's super funny. He's I always tell anybody and everybody, if you get a chance to meet him because he's got so much energy that I always tell people, like, if I'm half that spry once I get to that age, I'll be doing okay, because man, he goes like he's still in his 20s. Like, he is just, he's a wonderful guy.
Keeps going. Oh well, Jay. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and we've covered a lot of different topics, and I wanted to ask you, where can my listeners find you, more about you, feel free to share your socials.
Yeah, I've got Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok for however long it'll still be around. YouTube. I just signed up for Fanbase and Clapper, which I guess is supposed to be like what's taking TikTok's place if it goes away. And basically you could just search Jay Bravewolf on those. I'm the only one around. I tell everybody to, don't just like and follow, reach out, talk. My inboxes are always open. I'm always happy to talk with people about wrestling and all the things that I'm involved in, which is pretty much just wrestling, and always happy to connect with other folks and offer whatever insight I can.
Yeah, the fact that you took the time here today says a lot about you, and I appreciate you for coming on and just taking the time and your knowledge to share it with the whole world out here.
Yeah, and I am honored to have been asked to be here. Like, I want everybody out there to know that David here's a good guy, and we really need more folks like him in the wrestling space, because he really does do a positive thing here. And again, I'm very humbled and very honored to, out of all the people you could have asked to be here, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
I appreciate it. Like you mentioned earlier, I don't do this for the fame or the money. I just do it because I'm a fan first.
Yeah.
And a podcaster second.
Yep.
You know. Well, thank you. And if you guys want to listen to this podcast, you guys can go on Spotify, YouTube, as well as any other major podcasting outlet out there. And as always,
Thank you.